Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. You're listening to the RX Daily Dose. Today's episode is being recorded for Monday, April 13th, and I'm your host, Ian Parnagoni. We update this podcast every week for healthcare providers, medical professionals, and anyone who has an interest in drug updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms and social media, including iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. All links can be found in the show notes below. This week from the FDA, we have updates for you on the approval of Koselugo for the treatment of pediatric patients with neurofibromatosis type 1. We also have updates for you on new indications that were approved for Reblozyl and Braftovi. We'll also be talking about the most recent ranitidine recall, and as usual, we'll be giving an update on the coronavirus epidemic and flu season to date, including an expanded scope for pharmacists to actually administer COVID-19 tests. Let's get right into it with the first one here. On April 10th, the FDA approved selumetinib, which goes by brand name Koselugo, for the treatment of pediatric patients that are 2 years of age and older with neurofibromatosis type 1. This is a genetic disorder of the nervous system causing tumors to grow on nerves. Koselugo is the first drug approved by the FDA to treat this debilitating, progressive, and often disfiguring rare disease that typically begins early in life. Koselugo is approved specifically for patients who have symptomatic, inoperable, plexiform neurofibromas, which are tumors involving the nerve sheaths, which is coating around the nerve fibers, and can grow anywhere in the body, including the face, extremities, areas around the spine, and deep in the body where they may affect organs. Koselugo is a kinase inhibitor, meaning it functions by blocking a key enzyme, which results in helping to stop the tumor cells from growing. Neurofibromatosis type 1 is a rare progressive condition caused by a mutation or flaw in a particular gene. NF1 is usually diagnosed in early childhood and appears in an estimated 1 out of every 3,000 infants. It's categorized by changes in skin coloring, neurologic and skeletal impairments, and risk for development of benign and malignant tumors throughout life. Between 30% and 50% of patients born with NF1 develop one or more neurofibromas. The FDA approved Koselugo based on a clinical trial conducted by the National Cancer Institute of pediatric patients who had NF1 and inoperable neurofibromas. Those were defined as a plexiform neurofibroma that could not be completely removed without risk for substantial harm to the patient. The results were from 50 of the patients who received the recommended dose and had routine evaluations of changes in tumor size and tumor-related factors during the trial. Patients received Koselugo orally twice a day until disease progression or until they experienced unacceptable adverse reactions. The clinical trial measured the overall response rate, defined as the percentage of patients with a complete response and those who experienced more than a 20% reduction in the neurofibroma volume based on MRI findings. The overall response rate was 66%, and all patients had a partial response, meaning that no patients had complete disappearance of the tumor. Of these patients, 82% had a response lasting 12 months or longer. Other clinical outcomes for patients during Koselugo treatment included changes in neurofibroma-related disfigurement, symptoms, and functional impairments. Although the sample sizes of patients assessed for each neurofibroma-related changes, such as disfigurement, pain, strength, and mobility problems, were small, there appeared to be a trend of improvement in neurofibroma-related symptoms during treatment. Common side effects for patients taking Koselugo were vomiting, rash, abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, musculoskeletal pain, headache, and pruritus. Koselugo can also cause serious side effects including heart failure and ocular toxicity, including retinal vein occlusion, retinal pigment epithelial detachment, and impaired vision. Patients should have cardiac and ophthalmic assessments performed prior to initiating Koselugo treatment and at regular intervals during treatment. Koselugo can also cause increased creatine phosphokinase, which is an enzyme found in the heart, brain, and skeletal muscles. When muscle tissue is damaged, CPK leaks into a person's blood. CPK evaluation in a patient receiving Koselugo should prompt an evaluation for rhabdomyolysis. Koselugo should be withheld, dosage reduced, or dosage permanently discontinued based on the severity of adverse reactions. Also, Koselugo contains vitamin E, and patients are at an increased risk of bleeding if their daily intake of vitamin E exceeds the recommended limits. The FDA granted this application priority review and breakthrough therapy designation. Koselugo also received orphan drug designation, which provides incentives to assist and encourage the development of drugs for rare diseases, and rare pediatric disease designation for the treatment of pediatric NF1. The FDA granted approval of Koselugo to AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals. The FDA also this week approved a new indication for luspatercept, which goes by brand name Reblozyl, for the treatment of anemia in adults with very low to intermediate risk myelodysplastic syndromes with ring sideroblasts, or with myelodysplastic myeloproliferative neoplasms with ring sideroblasts and thrombocytosis. Patients on Reblozyl also need to try and fail at least one erythropoiesis-stimulating agent and require 2 or more red blood cell transfusions every 8 weeks. Reblozyl was originally approved back in November of 2019 for patients with beta thalassemia. You can hear more on that indication for Reblozyl on episode 11 of the podcast. This approval was based on data from the Phase 3 Medalist trial that evaluated the efficacy and safety of Reblozyl in 229 adult patients with very low, or intermediate risk myelodysplastic syndromes with ring sideroblasts who require 2 or more red blood cell units over 8 weeks. Patients were randomized 2-to-1 to Reblozyl or placebo. The primary endpoint was the proportion of patients who are red blood cell transfusion free over any consecutive 56-day period. Results showed that Reblozyl met the primary endpoint with 37.9% of patients achieving red blood cell transfusion interdependence, compared with 13.2% of patients in the placebo arm. Additionally, a significantly greater proportion of patients treated with Reblozyl demonstrated at least 12 weeks being red blood cell transfusion free versus placebo. With regards to safety, the most common adverse reactions observed were fatigue, musculoskeletal pain, dizziness, diarrhea, dyspnea, nausea, hypersensitivity reactions, headache, and upper respiratory tract infections. Reblozyl is supplied as 25 mg and 75 mg lyophilized powder in single-dose vials for reconstitution and subcutaneous administration. The FDA also approved a new indication for the combination use of encorafenib, which goes by brand name Braftovi, and cetuximab, which goes by brand name Erbitux, for the treatment of adult patients that are diagnosed with a BRAF V600E positive metastatic colorectal cancer after a prior therapy. BRAF mutations are estimated to occur in up to 15% of people with metastatic colorectal cancer and represent a poor prognosis for these patients. This combination is the first and only targeted regimen for people with BRAF V600E mutated metastatic colorectal cancer who have received a prior therapy. The approval is based on findings from the International Open-Label Phase 3 Beacon CRC study, which was published in 2019 in the New England Journal of Medicine. The trial evaluated Braftovi plus Erbitux with or without Mektovi in 665 patients with BRAF V600E positive metastatic colorectal cancer whose disease had progressed after 1 or 2 prior regimens. Patients were randomly assigned in a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio to the targeted therapy triplet combination of Braftovi, Mektovi, and Erbitux. the targeted therapy doublet combination of Braftovi or Erbitux, or the investigator's choice of either Erbitux and Camptosar, or Erbitux and Fulferi, which is a combination of folinic acid, fluorouracil, and Camptosar. Results showed that the doublet combination of Braftovi and Erbitux demonstrated an improvement in overall survival, objective response rates, and median progression-free survival, compared with Erbitux plus Camptosar containing regimens. The most common adverse events seen in patients treated with Braftovi in combination with Erbitux were fatigue, nausea, diarrhea, abdominal pain, decreased appetite, arthralgias, and rash. The FDA previously granted the triplet regimen a breakthrough therapy designation for the treatment of patients with BRAF V600E mutant metastatic colorectal cancer following failure of 1 or 2 prior lines of treatment. Additionally, the triplet regimen has been included as a Category 2A treatment for patients with the disease in the National Comprehensive Cancer Network guidelines for colon and rectal cancers in the U.S. And on April 1st, the FDA announced it is requesting manufacturers withdraw all prescription and over-the-counter ranitidine drugs from the market immediately. This is the latest step in an ongoing investigation of a contaminant known as NDMA in ranitidine medications. The FDA determined that the impurity in some ranitidine products increases over time and when stored at higher than room temperatures may result in consumer exposure to unacceptable levels of the impurity. As a result of this immediate market withdrawal request, ranitidine products will not be available for new or existing prescriptions or over-the-counter use in the U.S. NDMA is a probable human carcinogen. In the summer of 2019, if you remember, the FDA became aware of independent lab testing by Valisure that found NDMA in ranitidine. Low levels of NDMA are commonly ingested in the diet. NDMA is present in foods and in water. These low levels would not be expected to lead to an increase in the risk of cancer. However, sustained higher levels of exposure may increase the risk of cancer in humans. The FDA conducted thorough lab tests and found NDMA in ranitidine at low levels. At the time, the agency did not have enough scientific evidence to recommend whether individuals should continue or stop taking ranitidine medicines, and continued its investigation and then warned the public in September of 2019 of the potential risks and to consider alternative OTC and prescription treatments. New FDA testing and evaluation prompted by information from third-party labs confirmed that NDMA levels increase in ranitidine even under normal storage conditions, and NDMA has been found to increase significantly in samples stored at higher temperatures, including temperatures the product may be exposed to during distribution and handling by consumers. The testing also showed that the older a ranitidine product is, or the longer the length of time since it was manufactured, the greater the level of NDMA. These conditions may raise the level of NDMA in the ranitidine product above the acceptable daily intake limit. The FDA is sending letters to all manufacturers of ranitidine requesting they withdraw their products from the market. The FDA is also advising consumers taking over-the-counter ranitidine to stop taking any tablets or liquid they currently have, dispose of them properly, and not buy more. For those who wish to continue treating their condition, they should consider using another approved over-the-counter OTC product. Patients taking prescription product should speak with their healthcare professional about other treatment options, as there are multiple drugs approved for the same or similar uses that do not carry the same risk of NDMA. And an update for you on influenza and coronavirus. For influenza this year, the CDC now estimates that in the US so far, there have been at least 39 million flu illnesses, 410,000 hospitalizations, and 24,000 deaths from the flu. 166 deaths have been reported in children. I put a link to the CDC weekly influenza tracker where you can get more detailed updates on the virus. And for the coronavirus, and these numbers are as of Sunday, April 12th, the coronavirus death toll rose to 113,013 individuals. That doubled since last week. And the number of confirmed infections rose to 1,831,203 worldwide. That's a 50% increase over last week. The United States now has 545,934 confirmed cases. That's a 70% increase over the week before. Previous weeks, we've seen double the amount of cases typically. So right now, that's the first good news from these numbers. There are now 21,474 confirmed deaths from the coronavirus. We saw the first death in the United States on March 1st, so that's just a little over a month with that total. All 50 states have now declared states of emergency for the coronavirus pandemic. And in the news this week as it relates to pharmacy and COVID-19, a statement came out from the Department of Health and Human Services which essentially authorizes licensed pharmacists to order and administer COVID-19 testing in an effort to continue to expand the nation's testing capabilities. As part of that statement, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health issued new guidance under the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, authorizing licensed pharmacists to order and administer COVID-19 tests. This statement comes from the Office of Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar and reads as follows. Giving pharmacists the authorization to order and administer COVID-19 tests to their patients means easier access to testing for Americans who need it. Pharmacists play a vital role in delivering convenient access to important public health services and information. The Trump administration is pleased to give pharmacists the chance to play a bigger role in the COVID-19 response, alongside all of America's heroic healthcare workers. The department continued and stated, the accessibility and distribution of retail and independent community-based pharmacies makes pharmacists the first point of contact with a healthcare professional for many Americans. This will further expand testing for Americans, particularly our healthcare workers and first responders who are working around the clock to provide care, compassion, and safety to others. What I would be interested in from my perspective, if there are any retail pharmacists out there who have worked to start testing, or if you are running a testing location, I'd love to talk to you and see how things are going and what your process is currently. And we'll be sure to keep you updated every week as things continue to evolve with the spread of the coronavirus. And that's all I have for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll include all links in the show notes below, so please go back and check those out too. Please connect with me on any of your social media platforms and give me feedback on what you heard today. I'd love to know what you thought about the episode. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.